he just folded.
Yeah.
He just folded, and it could be,
Yeah. See, yeah,
could
above
be,
the knee right there. Whew.
but his ankle kept folding, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it couldn't hold it. So maybe it was the ankle, but it was above the knee, like you're saying.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
it's some kind of nerve damage right there.
Mhm.
It's some kind of some kind of nerve damage. And then it's Chris Weidman versus Uriah Hall, a fight that just for the most part I expected to go longer, to
Yeah,
see some wrestling, some grappling, and just the first leg kick Weidman throws,
yeah,
his leg gets broken.
yeah.
And I don't remember if it was if I don't remember if Uriah was in southpaw or if he was conventional when that happened. I remember
Yeah.
because we usually see that when a southpaw kicks a conventional fighter or a conventional fighter kicks a southpaw, just because of the way the fighters are positioned. It's a lot easier to do damage with the check like that. So I don't remember
Gotcha.
if that's what happened, but just to see that injury happen to the same exact guy
Good.
that
Yeah.
was on the other side of it against Anderson Silva, it's almost like, did somebody put a curse on Weidman?
Right. Like you hate to think like that, but it almost makes you question things entirely. We're like, what the heck did I just see? And if you're a fan the way we've been fans for years, right?
Yeah.
And we go back, I still remember that night that happened. Oh my gosh, right? Like we're all just freaking out. It was almost identical.
Yeah.
It was a leg. He checked the low
Yeah.
leg kick. It was
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
simple checking of the leg.
Jeez Louise, man.
Yeah. And
And
same thing. If you play it in slow motion, I do remember this because same thing happened to Anderson. As it happens, you still don't know until you find out there's no foot to land on.
and until he steps on it.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
and then it bends the other. Oh,
Yeah. Bends the other way. And so the bone is clearly broken. They're going to have to do
jeez.
some fusion. He's not going to be able to kick like that ever again. And if he does decide to come back, he's going to stay away from kicks and just focus on boxing, which, there's a lot to be said about that too. As much as the flashy kicks we saw today, like with, Rose, traditional boxing. I mean, look at how Usman used really a lot of boxing
Mm-hmm.
today. Just coming up with,
Yeah.
just straight body jabs,
Yeah.
head jabs, weave, came for the takedown, came back up, connected that jab again, and then as it opened up that right cross that just came from from on the other side of
Burkina Faso. It's just
the world.
crazy.
It's just, yeah. So,
I think a lot of fighters are going to start like just questioning the whole leg kick thing. Because right now, there's just a lot of questions surrounding leg kicks. One, the calf kicks, like I think this is really going to make calf kicks a lot more attractive to people
yeah.
because because the calf kick is so low. It's so low. You save yourself from dealing with that kind of shin injury. So I think this injury to Chris right now, it's gonna make the calf kick so much more attractive to people.
Yeah, I
Whereas,
agree.
yeah, and then if you're fighting a southpaw or if you're southpaw facing someone that's not a southpaw, maybe it's just not the smartest thing to try to kick him in the legs. Period.
Yeah.
Just just because of how I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
If
you've trained stand up, right? When you
yeah,
get your leg checked like that, it's not a good feeling.
no, I mean
Especially, it's just not
awful.
a good feeling. And so a good question is a question, I don't know. I'll ask you. Like, where are we on, people have always, and I've been doing martial arts jiu-jitsu for a long time, as you know, right?
Mhm.
What do we say about the traditional martial arts in terms of the stuff that does work that we're seeing now, like the snap kick, like the front kick, like the roundhouse, like even
So
the spinning back kick?
yeah,
Like, I'm not saying, because there's a lot of people that were just completely bash traditional martial arts, and then there's guys that just live and die by traditional martial arts. Well, what if they're both wrong, right? Where there's somewhere in the
yeah,
middle where they can
yeah,
use some of those useful
yeah.
resources and stuff.
Yeah,
Just,
see, the Muay Thai style has huge benefits. The
mm-hmm,
benefit is that if I land a good Muay Thai style leg kick on you, you're gonna be limping for days. That's the
mm-hmm,
benefit. The con is if you check one of those, you can do catastrophic damage to me just
Yeah.
because of the mechanics of the kick, the rotation of the hip, how much power you put into it. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
When it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, it's catastrophic. Meanwhile, you look at the more traditional kicks like the karate and the taekwondos, they're snappier, they're faster, they don't do as much damage, but the risk of injury is lower. So it's
Way
like
lower.
it's a trade-off, right? It's like
Yeah.
it,
I
you
mean,
know,
but even today we saw that kick with Rose, right? Like it did amazing damage because she landed it at the right place, at the
it,
right time.
and it was unexpected. She didn't see it. So yeah, especially when it's like when the kicks are going high, I think it's safer. Like the
Hmm.
Muay Thai style, it's safer if you're going above the knee. So it's
Yeah.
if you're firing kicks to the body, I favor the Muay Thai style. Just
Okay.
because even if you're trying to block it, I mean that it will shatter your elbows. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not breaking someone's shin if they're kicking your elbows. I mean, it's deadly. But the leg kicks, I think that's where a lot of fighters will have to start maybe questioning, should I be using Thai style leg kicks? Because even though it's good, man, you get checked, you know.
Yeah. So and then so let me ask you this, right? So you start thinking of Muay Thai as a system of a combat system because I studied it, you studied it. I didn't do it nearly as long as I would want to, but something is like that, the clinch game, the knees, the
Mm-hmm,
elbows, the
mm-hmm,
spinning back fist, like
mm-hmm,
those, the Superman punch or whatever.
mm-hmm,
GSP
mm-hmm,
was always famous for that stuff.
mm-hmm.
The flying knee. Those are technical movements that do work.
Yes.
But the low leg kick is one of those scary ones. We're seeing it now where, okay, after a certain amount of years of this leg
Yeah.
kick, your body's going to take a toll.
Yeah.
So this is where MMA becomes the beautiful system art that it is, because now the fighter has to fine tune the techniques for them.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'll be very honest. I'm guilty of this, and I'll just flat out say it. I was one of those highly critical individuals about traditional martial arts a long time ago. Oh, I do jujitsu. The traditional martial arts are not as effective, and there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Before I go back what I'm about to say,
I mean, Wing Chun is not a period. It's not effective. Get out of here.
Right? And so
Taekwondo is just
yeah,
no.
and I think the truth is out. Like people know something like jujitsu, wrestling is very effective for a real fight. I think we know that already. If not, the military and the law enforcement wouldn't be practicing it as much. But I had a really good judo coach for a few years, and I stayed in touch with him. And in the years, I respected him so much. He was just a great, great instructor, a professor, and he was a great man off the mats. So I respected it, a lot of the things he said. And he practiced judo. So he came from a judo perspective, but his judo was old Japanese judo. It wasn't the new judo now. So he didn't know the rules. He just taught you what his instructor taught him. And he was an older man from Mexico, and his instructor was from Japan. And I actually connected the dots. Linearly, he was from, lineage-wise, he was from Mifune, who's an old student of Jigoro Kano. Amazing history, right? And I just fell into this guy's lap, really by accident. It was awesome. And he passed away a few years ago. But before he passed away, we'd have conversations, and because of the conversations I had with him, it made me really respect traditional martial arts because he practiced not only judo, he practiced karate, he practiced Aikido, and even Aikido I was very critical of. He said there's a certain way of how he practiced it. It was a lot like his judo. Now this man, you have to realize, he's like 70 years old. He had a hard pacer, but he would grab you with his fingertips and throw you like a rag doll. Didn't matter how good your wrestling was, your judo was. I got to experience his teaching and his lessons, and he really made me just open my mind more. So I'm a lot less critical of traditional martial arts, and we're starting to see what someone like him was saying, which was, hey, there's a place for traditional martial arts.
Yeah.
The problem is people have ruined them for so many years that they get watered down, at some places, that then it becomes this like belt system. They're just handing them out, basically, right? But when you see it perfected in the craft that we saw tonight, there's some, traditional karate 50 years ago is not the same thing as the karate that's being taught now. And this is my biggest fear about jiu-jitsu. If we're not careful, it could happen to jiu-jitsu.
It's going to get so
50 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe not now, but 50 years from now, when people have forgotten, because jiu-jitsu is was primarily known for self-defense and MMA.
Mhm,
Really, just
mhm.
no holds barred. Like, how can you take the guy? So anyway, I just thought I'd
I
kind of
think, yeah, I think at the end of the day, Bruce Lee's philosophy of, taking what is useful and discarding what is not. I think at the end of the day, that is the absolute proper philosophy to take, mindset to use when you're a mixed martial arts. And it's kind of weird me saying that because I'm not a fighter, but I think it just makes sense,
for
right?
sure.
Just examine every single thing you have at your fingertips, look at all the different martial arts, and then just pick out what is useful, and then what is not, discarded. And this
Yeah.
is like for a very long time, someone like Conor McGregor was able to find a tremendous amount of success without throwing roundhouse kicks to the legs. The only
Yeah.
type of the only type of attacks he would do to the legs were the obliques and the front leg side kick. That's it. He wouldn't throw the regular roundhouse. And he was asked why, and he talked about just because of how much damage it did to the person that's kicking. And that's the thing with Muay Thai that I noticed myself, that even if they're not checking it, even if you're just slamming the kick and you're
Yeah.
landing, you still walk out of the fight limping. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm doing damage, but for some reason I'm still hurt, and that's striking in general. But I feel like if fighters can find a way to minimize that, right, to be able to do damage to my opponent without taking damage in return, just inherently, just from kicking, maybe I can find a martial art that allows me to do that is useful in that way. So maybe that's where the traditional arts can come in. The leg kicks, for example, maybe not the Muay Thai style. Maybe we go with the obliques, the front leg side kick, the
Yeah.
snap kicks, the low calf kicks, but not the super turn and rotation of the hip to slam it in. Maybe we leave, maybe we move away from that. But then with the body kicks, with the head kicks, we stick with Muay Thai and also some of the traditional stuff. So
Yeah.
it will depend on the fighter, their body type,
Yeah.
what they're good at, and all that. But yeah, you're right. All of these martial arts have a place. I don't know what place Aikido has, dude. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard for me to get behind Aikido. It's just, I think Steven Seagal has ruined it for everybody.
I think, yeah, I
Like,
think a majority of and I could be wrong, but a majority of what happened in Aikido is like the water downing of their martial art. Like, I think at
yes.
some point, because I believe the founder was from the same roots as Jigoro Kano, which was judo jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the line on his own path, he was
Mm-hmm.
doing well. His students probably did well, but the future students just ruined it. People like Steven Seagal,
Yeah.
like of course Steven Seagal corners Anderson Silva one fight, right, or something, and it's his snap kick, punch kick that knocked out Vitor Belfort.
Hey,
It
wait,
was
what are
Steven
we?
Seagal.
It
Yeah, I was
just,
like, yeah, yeah. So, but having this conversation with this individual, I did, and I remember this was maybe like 12 years ago. He told me, I told him about Muay Thai. I said, hey, what about Muay Thai? You can just learn these basic kicks. And he told me, of course, in Spanish, because this was a long time ago, in the border, he told me, but the guy who does Muay Thai for too long will pay for it when they're older. And
yeah,
the guy who does a traditional kick will never have to limp
yeah,
again. I remember him telling me this, and I was like, So I always remembered every time I did my Thai kicks, I'd get a little sore. I was like, oh, I
oh
get what
yeah,
he's talking about. And
yeah,
so we're starting to see this. Like when the first Anderson Silva fight happened, where he broke his shin, right? Like the whole bottom of his
yeah,
foot came off almost. I thought of him. And so it doesn't mean that the traditional martial arts are all great. It doesn't mean they're all bad. It just means that a lot has happened over the years, and a
yeah,
lot of it has truthfully been watered down. But you could still find some schools out there that are trying to be real to the tradition of the art, and then you'll hear some of it. Like going back to this individual, he would tell me, I don't believe in these karate tournaments with points, because the way
yeah,
we did them, it was full contact.
yeah.
Now you can't do that now, right? Because gosh, you get one kid hurt, you forget about it. They talk about lawsuits, and we're talking about offending people, but this is
Mm-hmm.
a very, very soft society now, right?
Oh
So
my
you
god.
can't do full contact anymore like that. It's just not business wise. It doesn't work out for the karate schools or the taekwondo schools. But if we could go back to the traditions of why they practice them and really, really understand that there's a lot that we can gain, I think, from some of these traditional martial arts. I don't know about Aikido.
Mm.
Maybe Aikido 50 years ago, right? If we had a time machine and went back then, I don't know if anyone can practice it truthfully the way it was supposed to be practiced, because it is a branch of judo and jiu-jitsu. It's just somewhere along the way, right? It got watered down. People try to. I still remember at one of my first jiu-jitsu schools, we'd roll, and it was like we'd share mat time with an Aikido school, and we're about to. Yeah. It was so weird, right? And so we would get ready to roll, and like some overweight Aikido student would come walk in with a bunch of like swords and stuff, and and he would tell us right before about to roll. Oh, they didn't tell you today we canceled your open mat, and because we're gonna do an Aikido seminar. We're like, and we're listening to this guy. We gotta leave now because of this guy. What if we say no? No, we didn't say that. But
what are you gonna do if we say no?
Yeah, exactly, right.
You gotta ankle lock me and flip me. No, you're not gonna do anything.
You might take out a wooden sword, man. I remember you had a bag of like.
Oh, he's gonna hit you over the head with a wooden sword.
Then we really gotta use jiu-jitsu. But yeah, so there's these conversations are good. Now I'm at a point where in the past, I would be overly critical and judge someone from a traditional martial arts background. Now I take a minute and I say, okay, well, where do you train and who are you under? And let me see some of that. And so there is a lot we could learn from it. Unfortunately, people aren't taking the time to do it, I think. And we go back to what you said. Bruce Lee said it, right? Like Bruce Lee's whole Jeet Kune Do philosophy was that. And the whole idea was, hey, I learned boxing for my martial arts. Boxing has the best striking with hands for your hands. Bruce Lee said it himself. Mm-hmm. And it is a staple in MMA. You need to know boxing to be in MMA. You need to know jiu-jitsu to be in MMA. You need to know wrestling to be in MMA. Those are like the staples, right? The striking art, the grappling art, and the takedown art. Mm-hmm. And then you have the outliers, the judo Olympian, or, the crazy kickboxer who fought K1, right? Or the jiu-jitsu world champion, right? And that becomes the identity of the fighter. And then they have to kind of find themselves. So it's great stuff, man. Yeah. Great stuff.